What's up, guys? This is Audie Murphy, and welcome back to part 4 of our Company of Heroes 2 Ardennes Assault walkthrough. Tonight, we're going to be going to Stoumont, which is along the northern edge of our theater of operations here. And to do that, we're going to be doing Dog Company, but we're going to be playing around with Dog Company a little bit first. We have some requisition here to play with, and I want to get some upgrades going on. Now, we have a number of selections to choose from, but what I'm really most interested in is getting these Assault NGs up and running. Now, I want to give them a flamethrower for sure, and definitely an extra man, and also reduce their cost a little bit, down to 80% of normal, which is going to reduce it down to the 230 range, which is highly manageable. So let me get those upgrades activated, and we'll take it back to the map screen here. So, Dog is still in Elsenborn Ridge, and we're going to bring him over towards the west, towards Stoumont, which is where we're going to be fighting tonight. I'm debating whether or not Stavelot or Stoumont makes a more attractive target, but I think this early in the campaign, just getting a line established probably beats taking on some of these more powerful armies. And so I'm going to scoot around the edge of Stavelot. And speaking of Stavelot, however, there is a captain specialization event available there, which will upgrade my captain. And so I'm debating whether or not I want to just go ahead and go for Stavelot. But on second thought, Stoumont still is the more attractive target, and I can always double back and bring it around. So this is a fuel drain scenario, whereby we are going to have to hold on to a number of the German fuel points throughout the mission until they tick down 0 and call it a day. The more fuel we hold, the more their vehicles will run out of fuel and present themselves open for the taking. So let's dive on in and let's do this.
After a 2-hour tank battle in Stoumont, German armor was running on fumes and forced to pull back. No one expected a counteroffensive so soon after. German forces in the area may outnumber our troops, but their fuel shortage gives us an unforeseen advantage. If our boys can maintain their desperate hold on the small town's fuel reserves for long enough, the German war machine will stall.
Alright, here's the situation. The Germans wasted their fuel reserves advancing into the area. If we can cut off Stoumont's remaining supplies of gas, Fritz's attack will be completely stalled. We've got a bumpy road ahead of us, boys. And the starting point is the town sanatorium. If we can capture and hold it and its fuel reserves, the German armor will be dead in the water. Let's get to it, Dog.
So in real life, this was the point of conflict between Montgomery and American commanders on the ground. And we see here that I've picked up some heavy weapons and begun advancing my troops in with those Assault NGs leading the way and the rifles to cover. I'm going to scoop my Assault NGs, push them right in as my rifles put down some suppression and pop them into that house. As I'm moving the rest of my troops to flame out that sanatorium, I want to talk about Montgomery for a second. Now, Montgomery knew the Germans were in deep trouble. He knew that they were out of fuel, but he still was playing it very conservatively. He didn't want to push his troops in. He didn't want to sacrifice British lives unnecessarily and wanted to wait for the Germans to withdraw. The Americans, on the other hand, saw the opportunity, and really independently of their higher command, you had division-level commanders exercising their authority to promote aggressive actions, and that's exactly what happened. And in doing so, the Americans were able to literally overrun the Germans in this part of the pocket. and push them out, and as well as capture a lot of their heavy weaponry and armor in the process. And this incensed Montgomery, who realized that he had really been shown up by the Americans when he was prone to taking a more defensive posture. And in this case, on the heels of that American victory, he actually wrote a letter to Roosevelt claiming that the Americans were really destroying the chances of victory in Europe by taking these kind of risks. And Roosevelt, who was not keen on listening to that kind of advice, especially on the heels of such a stunning American victory, promptly wrote a letter to the British Supreme Commander and basically said, you need to pull Monty off the line and get him retired, or I am no longer going to lead this coalition. And that really forced the Brits' hand, who pulled Montgomery and replaced him, and that was the end of Monty's military career in Europe. Now, it's also very interesting to note here that this aggressive action on behalf of the Americans took place entirely on the divisional and company level, without any input from higher command. Literally, American commanders called high command and asked for permission to engage with them, and rather than being told to go for it, they were told that high command was essentially unable to hear them at the moment, and they took that as permission to go ahead and commit to aggressive action, and really was a case in point of American victory by disarray. And this solitary act really helped to define American military strategy in the long term. As the Stavka, the Russian high command, famously said after the war, the American army is impossible to predict, mostly because the American military command has no idea what the army is actually doing. And we see here on that note that I've cleared out the sanitarium and opened up the way for my forces to advance further into the city. Now, keeping in mind that this is a fuel point campaign, our primary objective is going to be seizing these two fuel points on the map and holding them for as long as possible to drain the German army of the resources they're going to need for their armor to move up. And on that note, we have a German armored car moving in and trying to put some fire on my troops. My medic wagon is kind of in a precarious position there, but that armored car is going to take a lot of fire from that AT and those stovepipes right off the bat, and it is going to go down right in front of my bunker there as the MG goes up in it. And those two remaining Volksgrenadier squads are going to try to move in and do a little bit of damage, but they're going to get mopped up pretty easily by my bulk of forces there, and that is going to do it for the first German push. Now, this armored car is down. I'm going to go ahead and hop some of my troops up in it, or get it refueled, and bring it around and use it as a mobile defensive structure, which has a little bit of AT capacity as well, and that's a good early game unit to be using for this mission. So as we do that, I want to keep in mind what my primary objectives are here, which are going to be obviously to seize the fuel and begin draining the Germans of that resource. So the first point of fuel that we're going to need to contact, you see as the mini-map opens up there in the lower left, is right up here down that road, where it's flashing on the mini-map now, is where I'm going to need to take my troops. But before we do that, I'm going to get one more defensive structure up there and make sure that we have a task force that can get allocated for that role. I'm looking around to see what I can pull off the line, what troops I have available at my disposal to bring up and push into this German territory here. And it looks like these three squads are just about going to be it for me. I have a flamethrower NG and an LT and a rifleman as well with some assorted heavy weapons. I'm thinking about bringing this NG as well, but I decided just to go ahead and pop him back in that bunker because it doesn't have an MG yet. And if I do face an attack from that flank, that NG squad may well be the only defense I have until I can get a MG turned around and properly faced. So as I'm running with these three squads here, you see right off the bat 1, 2, 3 Volksgrenadiers coming in to try, and 4 Grenadiers trying to come in and try to block me, 2 of which are going to go into that house. I'm going to need to force 2 of my squads around the edge of that house to reduce the amount of fire that they're taking from those other 2 Volksgrenadier squads. And I'm going to pop my LT into that bottom house to let him snipe at those 2 remaining Volksgrenadiers that aren't in our house currently. That flamethrower is doing heavy damage to those two that are penned up inside. You see they're almost down already with just a couple bursts from that flamethrower. And I'm thinking about if I want to bring in my scout car to have them back up the fight, but it's not really going to be necessary as those two squads are totally flamed out now. And I'm going to bring my assault MGs around to the edge of the house, pop them in, and have them start putting down flame into that lone Volksgrenadier squad that is remaining. My LT's getting a little bit low, but I think that he's going to survive this fight as they make it out of there with just 2 men left in their squad. And I'm going to go ahead and pull him back to my medic wagon so I can get him reinforced up. He did take a couple casualties there, but nothing too bad considering we took on 4 Volksgrenadier squads and took them all out down to the last man. So that was a pretty effective advance. I'm going to go ahead and get my LT rejuvenated up here and get him back in the fight as that point caps up. Now, as I cap off this German fuel here, that is going to make my job a lot easier, as German tanks and light armor are going to find themselves running out of fuel on their way along their spearhead, reducing the amount of armor that I'm going to have to deal with, and also increasing the amount of armor that could potentially be picked up or otherwise salvaged for me. So the more fuel here that I can hold, the better, and the faster I can cap that fuel, the better off I'm going to be, the less manpower losses I'm going to take. That said, we're not there yet, however. As this munitions point finishes capping off, I only have the 2 squads available to allocate up there yet as the LT comes back up. And I'm probably going to have the LT grab that heavy weapon up off the ground there as well. But we see here back at the front, the Germans are moving along their primary spearhead with a piece of light armor, very, very light armor, just a half track there, taking some shots from the air team, getting decimated right off the bat. We also have 2 squads of Volks and 1 squad of Panzer Grenadiers there that are going to be putting down a little bit of fire on my assault NGs, but that assault NG has a way outclassed there with that flamethrower, and he's going to be able to mop them up there without much micro on my part. So I have 3 squads now back and reallocated for the fight there. You see there, all of those Germans are totally mopped up with a heavy weapon laying on the ground that I'm going to pick up at my earliest available opportunity. But for now, my primary objective really is just taking care of that fuel, and I want to make sure that while my defenses here are properly faced, I'm not spending too much time hanging around my base here. I want to get these troops right into the fight and get them moving on this German fuel as rapidly as possible. I only see 1, 2 squads of Volks here to begin with, and that's going to be pretty easy for me to deal with these 3 squads. They are not at ideal range, but those flamethrowers are going to make short work of those troops in green cover. And you see there and you see a 3rd Volksgrenadier squad moving in now up on that northern edge and sweeping around the edge of that house, but he's going to get pretty easily taken down too by that burst of flame, which is in a really good position to deal with them. I'm going to go ahead and move on up with my rifles here and take out this last Volksgrenadier squad. Meanwhile, back in my base, I have this 2-star rifleman that's going to go ahead and pick up this ammo crate there next to my base. But back up here, there is just this 1 remaining Volksgrenadier there, which I'm going to have my rifleman go ahead and move in, mop up, and there he goes. So that is a objective complete here. I'm going to go ahead and cap up this fuel, pick up everything in the vicinity, and hightail my troops back to base. It is still quiet here in my base, fortunately. I'm going to go ahead and move this medic wagon up and get the heal ability on to go ahead and top off my troops that took a little bit of damage there in that last skirmish. Meanwhile, over here, however, I do have a pretty much reformed corps that I can use to begin pushing out right and begin to head towards that other German fuel on the other side of the map as this 1 fuel here gets capped up by my troops. So it looks like I've pretty much picked up everything in the vicinity here that could be picked up. I'm going to bring these troops back to my base and get them healed up and have those now serve as the bulk of my defense here to stave off German attacks upon my center. Meanwhile, however, I'm going to bring another task force over here and have them start picking up stuff and beginning to push along that edge, along that eastern edge, up towards that other fuel point. Really, the faster I can get that other fuel point, the faster I can take the Germans out of this fight entirely. They're not going to make it for too much longer without their armor reserves, and without fuel, they have no armor on this map. So securing the rest of that fuel is going to be my top priority here. Oh wow, and we see Germans coming now along my western flank and giving me a little bit of action to deal with on that side, as the majority of my troops are running off in the other direction, towards the other edge of the map, and that bunker there still does not have an MG yet. and that bunker is in trouble as it has taken a lot of damage from a combination of sources. And actually, a combination of my AT gun and scout car is the one that delivers the final fatal blow to that bunker. And that STuG now is going to move in, trying to run over the bulk of my infantry there. Fortunately, they're able to scoot to the side and get around it. But that STuG now is out of fuel, pointed in the Germans' direction, as the rest of these Germans are going to get mopped up pretty easily by those assault NGs and that flamethrower. And that is an abandoned STuG right on my doorstep, which is going to be nice. So I'm going to go ahead and use this opportunity to go ahead and push up. Oh, well, there was a STuG on my doorstep, but that AT gun... That AD gun is killing as many friendly troops as he is enemies today, folks. A lot of blue on blue. So we see here that as I've taken my eye off the battlefield, I have rushed my infantry up into a couple close-range squads, which are going to get mopped up. However, not before dealing a lot of damage. You see they're tossing a grenade into my center mass of assault NGs, and while they live, they are going to be significantly reduced. So after capping that up, I'm probably going to need to reinforce them before they can continue to push. I've gone ahead and put another bunker in with this assault NG squad. So I need to try and recover here. I'm going to go ahead and pop healing on again and get my men topped off after that most recent assault. And we see here that the optional objective has popped up way up in the northwestern edge of the map. And to get there, I can go through friendly terrain for most of the way. But I don't know what's there, and I'm sure that there's probably a rather large German task force there. I'm considering at this point whether the risk of going there is worth the manpower loss I'm going to take, and it's down to about, I want to say about 85 to 90% right now. The Germans are still pushing very hard, and these German counterattacks are getting much more fierce. So what I'm thinking right now is I'm just going to go ahead and cap off the remaining German fuel point and try to stretch along this eastern edge here to not only blunt that German advance, but also get some men in defensive posture to deal with threats that come along this main road from the east. Because gauging which direction they've been coming from historically, I have every reason to suspect that from that eastern edge might be may very well be the next counterattack. So I'm just going to go ahead and push up directly on that fuel point. You see here we're catching some contact from a couple of Volk squads on the one flank and then a couple more on the other. I need to pop my riflemen up into that house and give them some field cover to deal with the majority of these threats. There's also an MG there facing O here, and we do have some Germans pushing along that main line. The first of which is going to get knocked out fairly easily by the combination of that captain and that AT gun, and they're coming from two flanks now here, as you see some of them getting pinned down by that MG there on the western edge as well, using this time also to move up and deal with this MG here that's up in this pocket with this flamethrower. You see there, it does the job quite nicely, and then I can move on to the rest of these Volks up in that house. You see here two more Volk squads down here as well, one of which is in that house and one of which is out in the open. I'm going to go ahead and switch fire on my rifles to the one that is in the open, maximize my damage there. And we see here that we're down to just one Volk squad with a bazooka there on the main attack. So my defenses have mopped that up pretty cleanly and left me free to kind of maneuver here over on the eastern edge, which I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my assault engineers back to my medic wagon and have them get topped off there as I continue to push up with my remaining two squads there and try to get some visibility on what might be in that last little fuel pocket up there. As that's capping up, I have a feeling that there is the fuel point right there. Oh, here, and we do see an MG barricaded in that house, which opens up at close range on my forces getting an insta-suppress. I'm hoping that my flamethrowers can take that MG down, but there's just too much fire there. I got to retreat them out of there before they end up total squad losses, and that hurts. They were not able to do really a whole lot of anything with their lives there. Unfortunately, they did get that MG a little bit low, but they also tipped off the Germans that we are going to be pushing up there. And that is not good news for us, unfortunately, as I don't have the bulk forces necessary to continue to push up in there with all the Germans had. I saw at least one AT gun, as well as that MG, and then 2 supporting squads as well. I think the best idea is for me to pop up in this STuG here. It comes also at full health, which is nice. It just ran out of fuel. It did not get pegged by my AT, so we're going to put that right into the fight right off the bat here, and I'm going to bring that over and have that support my infantry there as they try to push up and do a little bit of damage in that sector. I'm thinking mortars or artillery might be needed up in that region to get those Germans out of there. With that, the way that German MG is angled, unfortunately, I'm either going to need to flank around it on both sides and commit to a suppress with a bulk, or just move in with mortars, some kind of indirect fire. Oh wow, we see here that STuG moving into not a great position at all, as it's getting pegged by that German armor, that combination of German armor there. I need to back him out of the fight. I'm going to use my assault engines here, my infantry, try to shield off that wall of infantry from approaching up, and try to prevent it from getting a kill shot on my tank. But you see there, they're running into just a wall of infantry on their own, a couple close-range squads there, as well as Volks just to back it up, and that tank. And they just get mopped up, taking more casualties on their retreat, dropping their primary weapon. And I'm getting infiltrated from all sides here, as I need to get my medic wagon the heck out of harm's way. That Panzerschreck could rip that medic wagon to bits. And I am in trouble here, folks, as we have here a swarm of Germans threatening, and more Germans pushing up as well. Another tank just running right into my forces there and able to slip through behind my AT. I do have more AT backing it up, fortunately enough, and it is going to get dealt with. But my tank here is in deep trouble, as it's getting pegged from the rear as another German infantry squad slips around and gives a Panzerschreck in its butt. And its main gun is down. The bulk of my infantry is committed, and this tank is just treading water. I'm just trying to get it the heck out of harm's way and hoping that these Germans just scoot past and get pegged by my flamethrower rifleman there in that house without being able to deliver a fatal kill shot to that tank. All he needs to do is put one more Panzerschreck into it, and it's going to be dead, along with that medic wagon. Oh wow, which is just with a sliver of health trying to inch its way out of combat. And fortunately, I'm going to be able to come around and deal with that infantry there just in the nick of time, as both of these pieces of armor are down just a sliver of health, and it's all I can do to put my assault engines on them and have them start repairing. Meanwhile, back at the front, I seem to have blunted the majority of it, luckily enough, with that all being heavily engaged in micro elsewhere. I just need to get these vehicles back up and reconstitute a force on that flank. You saw there 2 strong German armies coming at once, and surprisingly, as I was mid-assault, wreaking havoc with my plans and putting me into a very defensive posture there, which almost cost me very dearly, as that would have been a huge blow to my company reserves, as well as my capacity to continue pushing up and trying to pin down that final fuel point. Fortunately, though, I do have that pretty much reconstituted, and I'm hoping that I can just push in there with that bulk of forces now and get it done, as I see about maybe getting some repairs done, or at least repositioning my forces on that line. So, oh wow, that STuG not exactly doing wonders, as my bulk of infantry is just trying to run in and do as much damage as possible. You see that MG out of position, getting overwhelmed very quickly by my bulk of infantry, which is really why I pushed him and try to get dominance over the field as quickly as possible. I'm taking a lot of casualties here, as there's just fire flying back and forth in both directions, fire and flame, literally. But that tank is going to push past the majority of the AT, get behind him, and my forces are going to be the ones left on the field this day, folks. That combination of flamethrowers and that final grenade there really did the trick, as there's only 1 AT left on the field, and it is going to take it taken out by the bulk of my infantry there, and I'm going to start capping down that fuel point. So hopefully I can get that capped out as quickly as possible here and really put a damper on the enemy's fuel. And you see a couple more Volks Grenadier squads there still operating just north of me. I need to go ahead and get my tank to safety, make sure he doesn't take any more shots in the rear, as he does no good facing the wrong direction. And retreat my lone infantry. Oh wow, pack through a very bad retreat path, and it is not going to end well for him, as he runs right into the bulk of German infantry and armor, who are just kind of looking at him like, what are you doing here, friend? This is not the place for you to be. and promptly shoot him at close range. And this bulk of German forces now is moving, not only approaching on the eastern flank, but also from straight down the pipe. And fortunately, I have some stovepipe of my own to deal with that panzer, but they're still pushing here as I don't have any blocking force necessary to put in the way. My tank here is not able to get repaired because there are no more NGs. That one NG having sacrificed his life to that retreat path, and my other NGs here are advancing upon a very, very bad route, which is not going to end well for them either. So that is going to be 2 full assault engineer squads wiped by this approaching German force, and I am in trouble as there's a lot of armor now coming in and a whole lot of infantry. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 squads of infantry coming in. My bunker is down. Their armor is pushing in, and this is getting real dicey here, folks. I don't think that I have the volume of fire to back this up. My MG there is getting totally swarmed now and about to get flanked. I have this one MG on the rear, and I'm going to call in artillery at point blank range there, retreat my infantry out of there, and splatter the Germans right on my doorstep. I do still have my tank there operating in the rear, and those victorious 3-star riflemen coming up to seal the victory as the remaining Germans escape out of Dodge with their lives. Well, artillery there really won the day for me. I lost a whole lot of men. I probably would have lost a whole lot more had it not been for that arty there right at the very end. But we did it, folks, and we escaped out of there with maybe only about 25% of the company down, which is well, pretty substantial loss considering this is only a 1-star enemy, and we didn't get any optional objectives done.
I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm glad for the boys. They fought their asses off today to hold Stoumont, and without fuel, the Germans have lost their teeth in this fight. But if I know anything, it's that victories like this are just the calm before the next storm. Kids under my command are getting pulverized. Maybe a different war. The sights never change. Dead and dying everywhere.
So thanks for watching, guys. Check out the next part of this here. This is kind of a Pyrrhic victory, I think. One that could have gone a whole lot worse. And I have a feeling that things may get darker here before the end of this. So remember to click those likes and sub buttons if you enjoyed. Check out the next part. Come check us out on Steam and say hi, and we'll see you next time.